This is cool because I actually, my family attends church here, and normally we sit right over there, so I got a little different angle. This is nice. So, hey, how do you know? How do you know if you are a good leader? Like, what's the metrics that we can use to measure that, or how can we determine, hey, I'm a good leader. On a scale from 1 to 10, I'm a whatever that number is. For those of us in law enforcement, especially in this profession, I can tell you we don't find out from our people usually, right? I mean, how many of you have people coming up to you every day going, boss, chief, major, whatever, you're doing a great job? We don't hear that a lot, do we? No, and that's okay. So how can we know how well we're doing? You know, is it how long we're in the job? You know, the average police chief at one time lasted 3.5 years at their department. I've been in Alpharetta 4.5 years. I'm good, right? That must mean I'm a good leader. No, not a good measurement. One thing I have found, and I found this actually when I did my dissertation, and I had a great time doing this. I got to use several Metro Atlanta police chiefs, some departments even here, and talking about transformational leadership. And so I surveyed police chiefs, and then I surveyed their officers, and got a lot of information out of that, trying to determine what leadership style impacts job satisfaction and performance the most. But one of the things I learned out of that I wasn't expecting, and then I saw is I had some chiefs that thought they were kind of here leadership-wise, but their officers thought they were kind of here. So again, there's a little bit of a disconnect in knowing, am I doing a good job or not? You know, what can I base that on? So, am I this guy?
Hello, Peter. What's happening? We have sort of a problem here. Yeah, you apparently didn't put one of the new cover sheets on your TPS reports.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
Yeah. You see, we're putting the cover sheets on all TPS reports now before they go out. Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah. Yeah, I have the memo right here. I just forgot. But it's not shipping out till tomorrow, so there's no problem.
Yeah. If you could just go ahead and make sure you do that from now on, that would be great. And I'll go ahead and make sure you get another copy of that memo. Okay?
Yeah, no, I have the memo. I've got it. It's right.
Hello, Phil. What's happening?
You ever worked for a boss that you remember and you went, that's what not to do, right? If you're not familiar, most of you should be. That's Office Space, great lessons on how not to be a boss. But I can tell you, Bill probably thought he was a good boss. I mean, he was pretty, to use the T-Rex analogy that Frank used earlier, he had the big head and the small arms, right? But if you'd asked Bill, are you a good boss? He would have thought he was a good boss. So are we that boss, or are we...
This is our army. To join it, you give homage.
I give homage to Scotland. And if this is your army, why does it go?
We didn't come here to fight for them.
Oh, the English are too many.
Sons of Scotland, I am William Wallace.
William Wallace is 7 feet tall.
Yes, I've heard. Kills men by the hundred. And if he were here, he'd consume the English with fireballs from his eyes and bolts of lightning from his arse. I am William Wallace. And I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do with that freedom? Will you fight?
Fight against that? No! We will run.
And we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
I want to be him. Charisma, exuberance, enthusiasm, reputation, 7 foot tall. I mean, he's a legend, right? He's the kind of leader that the people will follow him to the gates of hell with a water gun for that guy, right? So that's what I want to be. But how do we know, honestly, how effective we're being as leaders? And ultimately, it fits right into our theme today. How influential are we? Do we have influence over our people? Frank this morning, when he was talking, he said leaders have influence. Like Billy said a few minutes ago, it seems like everything's been building, each speaker upon each other, and that wasn't intentional, although some of you stole some of my stuff, so now I'm having to rearrange some of this. But ultimately, it is all about influence. And so you want to know if you're an effective leader, are you being influential in your role, whatever your role is? And remember, and this was said earlier as well, leadership is not about rank. It's not about what's on your collar. It's about, again, your ability to influence. Like when we're looking to promote people in our agency in Alpharetta, I want to promote people that already demonstrate leadership qualities. And one of the things we look for is those people, those men and women that are influential with their peers, that are leading their peers in the direction that we want to go in as an agency, that are helping meet the mission and exhibit the values. Those are the people. I don't want to promote people and then teach them. I want to see people I want to promote people that I've seen already act like a leader and demonstrate a leader. And one of the greatest examples of that, or indicators of that, is they are influential with those that they go to work with. I love this definition of influence: the capacity or power of persons or things to be, and I love this part, a compelling force on. A compelling force on or produce effects on the actions, behavior, opinions, etc. of others. So, ultimately, compelling force. Are you a compelling force in your organization? If I went and talked to your people right now that you work with, that work for you, that you work for, whatever, would they describe you as a compelling force? Having that ability, again, to pull people and lead people in the right direction. That's what leadership is about. We can talk about several tenets and characteristics of it, but ultimately it's about your ability and my ability to be able to influence. As chief, if people are acting upon my direction because of the stars on my collar, I am not being a leader. To use Brian's words, I'm being a boss. And that is not effective leadership. But if I am utilizing my hopeful skills and abilities and influence to move people in the right direction, and to help them get toward the mission and the values and the things that are important to us as an organization, that's what I can look at and go, okay, now maybe I can check the box that I'm at least being an effective leader. And that should be what our goals are, is to ultimately influence and move people in the right direction. I love this quote: leadership is the capacity to influence others through inspiration, motivated by passion, generated by vision, and produced by a conviction, ignited by purpose. 2 words I want to focus on right there: influence, purpose. Purpose. That is the key, and that's what I want to talk about in just the next couple of minutes, is purpose. You want to have influence, you've got to have purpose. You can't have one without the other. We desperately need, now more than ever in our profession, do we need purpose-driven leaders. Leaders that come to work every day with a purpose, with a mission, with a sense of direction of what they want to do and what they're trying to accomplish. And I'll say this now, and I'll say it at the end. Your purpose somehow should be about your people. It's got to be about your people. Anything else is counterintuitive and will never get us into a position where we can be influential like we need to be in our role, as whatever your role is in your organization. And again, now more than ever in our profession of public safety, we desperately need leaders that are leading with purpose, and that other word that was on the quote, passion. Our people that we work with, they need to see that in us. They need to see that our purpose and our passion is about them. They need that now more than ever in a profession that we all know. We've already heard today. We know the difficulties. We know the struggles. We know what we're facing, and honestly, I don't know that it's going to get any better. And so now more than ever, we need leaders to step up and lead with purpose and influence with purpose. And let me tell you, you started your career with purpose. You did. Think about it. Remember when you first came to work? Trent, the major that works for us now, Fred, talked about this a little bit today, about his first day at work. You remember your first day at work? Think back to that. My first day out of the academy, my first day in FTO. Man, I was ready to take on the mean streets of Alpharetta. Yeah, that's a joke, yes. We do have one or two bad little areas, but that's about it. But anyway, I was ready to conquer the mean streets of Alpharetta, right? Now, I have a bad boss story, too. I'll share just real fast to reiterate the fact that bad bosses can have bad effects on us. Now, my boss at the time was my FTO. Everybody understands, if you're in the profession, the importance of a field training officer. They are a supervisor of one, but they're one of the most important positions in the department. If you're an FTO, who are my FTOs here? We have none. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and tell the story anyway. All right, so I know if you're in the profession, you've been trained by an FTO. And so my FTO, my first night, it's graveyard shift, we called it back then, and I'm ready to go to work. I'm excited, I'm as green as I can be. And we get in the car, and he says, Robison, he says, I'm going to teach you tonight how to crack. I'm like, what? What does that even mean, crack? And I was like, dude, we're going to go get crackheads on the first night. This is awesome. That's not what that meant. So we drive around a little bit, and we pull into an industrial area between two buildings with nobody around, and it's dark. And he says, this is where we go and crack. In other words, this is where we go when we need to go take a nap. I'm not kidding you. My first boss in law enforcement, my FTO, was teaching me where to go park to take a nap. And by the way, if you take your boots off and put on top of the patrol car, that lets other cops that are going by know, hey, they're out of service, we'll pick up the call. My first night. My second night, we drive around the city. He sits in the passenger seat reading his Sensei magazine because he said he was a sensei, and he says, learn the city. And he fell asleep in the passenger seat, and I drove around all night just kind of trying to figure it out. Bad boss, okay? But thankfully, I still had purpose, and thankfully, my next two FTOs had purpose, and they got me back to there, where I was excited. And then think about, if you'll remember when you got out of FTO, what was next, right? Now I got a little bit of knowledge and understanding, and I am ready to get out there. How many of you remember your first arrest? Okay, I know it's late in the afternoon. Just pretend, okay? How many of you remember your first arrest? I see some hands, okay? Yeah, mine was a traffic stop, okay? Something minor, like probably today, I probably wouldn't even arrested the guy. I probably shouldn't say that publicly, but honestly, this guy's got to go to jail for this violation, right? This was very important. Again, mean streets of Alpharetta. So I'll never forget that. And I felt like I was in a profession that was making a difference, and what I did mattered. Like in Alpharetta and North Fulton, we're so blessed because we're so appreciated. And I was a part of something special and a part of a profession that was special. The problem is sometimes, though, as we get a few more years under our belt, I just hit 50 in January, we kind of move into this. And I'm looking around, and I'm seeing some of that around here, okay? You know, where you get to the point to where maybe you're with a rookie on your shift and say, look, dude, if they run, you go get them. I'm staying here. That kind of thing, right? And we need this, and we need that in leadership, honestly. That's part of what we need and what we're doing, all right? But the problem is sometimes there's a fine line between that and this, and that's where there's a problem. And unfortunately, and you know it as well as I do, we've got too many agencies that have leaders that are just like this. They come in, they do whatever their job is, they put a few fires out, they go take their lunch, they do their thing, and they go home. And there's no purpose. And let me reiterate something I said earlier. Now more than ever, we've got to have leaders that are purpose-driven. Purpose-driven, coming to work every day with a clear direction. Granted, most of you know, especially if you're in upper leadership positions, you know, I can come to work today and have a game plan, have a to-do list, have my calendar, and that can go sideways within 5 minutes. But ultimately, whatever I'm doing, it still needs to be centered or guided through the prism of whatever my purpose is. And so I want to just kind of leave this in your mind today. I'm going to give you 4 very basic steps. I like practical stuff when we talk. So I'm going to give you 4 very practical steps about this. But ultimately, I want you to understand the importance here, and more important than that, here, of the need to be a purpose-driven leader. As long as you're that purpose-driven leader, yeah, you're going to have bad days. Like we saw the cub up in the tree. There are going to be days like that, but for the most part, it keeps you on mission. It keeps you going through the bad times. Hello, COVID, right? Hello, riots. Hello, all that other stuff we've been dealing with the last year and a half. All right? That's where, more than ever, we needed leaders leading with purpose to help keep their people on board and moving in the right direction. And so let me give you just 4 quick little steps that you can take, practical steps, to make sure that you are working toward being a purpose-driven leader. And the first one is this, and this is going to sound simplistic, and honestly it is. Have a purpose statement. Write it out. A lot of you are taking notes right now. Go home, think about, here's your homework assignment. What is my purpose? And as you change jobs or you get promoted or move around, that purpose may change. But ultimately, why do I come to work every day? When Melissa shows up at the 911 center in Cobb County, why is she there? When Billy shows up at Dunwoody as the chief of Dunwoody Police, why is he there? It goes back to talking about what Melissa mentioned first. I'm sorry, I'm getting behind there a little bit. She talked about this book. Again, you stole my thunder a little bit, but that's okay. Start with why. That's the whole point of that book. Great leadership book. By the way, leaders are readers. Leaders are readers. You should be reading. And if you've never read one before, it's a good one to start with. But the whole point of the book is, what's your why? Why am I here? Why am I in this profession? Why do I do what I do? Why do I go to work? And you should have a why. In your position right now, whatever that is, you should have a why. And you should know what that is. And if I came to your table right now and said, what is your purpose? What is your why? You should be able to tell me that. And if it's, I'm the boss, I'm the major, I'm the chief, I'm a patrol officer, I'm a 911 operator, whatever that may be, that's what you do. Tell me why you do it. What's your purpose for that? And so think about it that mode. Think about something that can give you kind of this is why, this is what ultimately I do every day I come to work. If you were here last year, you heard this, ignore it, but I'm going to say it again. A question that I've taught and I believe and I try to apply in my life every day I go to work. A question I ask myself every day I go to work, or try to. I'm not going to tell you I'm always good at this. How can I add value to my people? You want a great purpose question for every day you go to work? Because again, remember, it needs to be about our people ultimately. How can I add value to my people? So when Major Kish comes to work every day, and the people that he's responsible for, the people he has influence over in Marietta, if he asks that question, and that's part of his purpose, how can I add value to my people? Think about that. Think about what an impact that's going to have not only his direction as a leader in the organization, but on the people he has influence over. Wow, my boss comes to work every day, and their purpose, their passion, is me. What an impact that would have. And does have. And I know some of you out here, and some of you are doing this already anyway. So, you create it. Give me a purpose statement. Second one, share purpose. Create a shared purpose. You create a purpose for yourself, you create a purpose for your people. This gets into mission and values, and you can call it different things, but ultimately, our job as leaders is to help create purpose, passion, direction for our people. I had a captain at the time who's one of my majors now. When I came back to Alpharetta the second time in our first command staff meeting, he said, man, we got all these talented people. And we did. I knew a lot of the folks from being there from before. And he said, we got all these great people, but it's like we're on this boat floating aimlessly with no direction. And I was like, wow, that's gold, Jerry. That's like lights came on. We got to have a mission. We got to have a purpose for the department as well. And so part of my passion, part of my purpose needs to be to create purpose and direction for my people. Because again, when the crap's hitting the fan and we're seeing riots and COVID and whatever else is going to come along in the future, that's when my job is to help keep them focused on their passion and their purpose, right? And on what matters. The mission, the values. Too many departments don't utilize mission statements and vision statements and values. And I know sometimes it's just words on a paper, but we as leaders can make it more than that. So you create one for yourself. You create a shared one for your department. And then ultimately, everything you do needs to be about your purpose. Like our mission statement in Alpharetta is to enhance the quality of life of those that live, work, and play in Alpharetta. All right, quality of life, that's been used 1,000 times. I'm sure I probably even stole that subconsciously somewhere from somebody else. But we make everything about quality of life. So my purpose statement every day I come to work is, how can I enhance the quality of life of those 250 employees that come to work for the Alpharetta Department of Public Safety? And so every decision I make, I'm saying theoretically, I'm not telling you I'm always good at it, but every decision I make should be about that purpose. So that means everything I'm doing, small, big, or in between, somehow, some way, I need to be utilizing a matrix that reminds me of my purpose of how is this going to affect and impact my people. That needs to be what's in front of me. And so if you have a purpose statement, it can be the greatest purpose statement ever. But if you don't use it and you don't apply it in your leadership, it's not doing anybody any good. So create a purpose statement, create purpose for your people, and then lead with purpose. And then finally, communicate purpose over and over and over again. I get a chance on the side to teach for a command president's company that does training for law enforcement, and I get to go talk about leadership around the country, and I love it because I learn so much from people, and I've learned so much from other great leaders. But you know what the number one complaint is always about their bosses? The number one complaint across the board in law enforcement in this profession is lack of communication. It's always communication. I see a bunch of heads nodding. Yep, it's one of the hardest parts of leadership. And so one of the greatest things that we can communicate day after day after day is the purpose. Our purpose, the purpose of the organization, why we exist. Patrick Lencioni is one of my favorite leadership authors. He's got a ton of books. If you're not familiar with him, I'm telling you, I recommend him. He calls it the Chief Reminding Officer, the CRO. We should be a CRO, constantly reminding our people of what matters, of our purpose, of our values, of why we're here every day. So that's 4 simple things. Purpose statement for yourself, create purpose for your people, be sure you're utilizing that purpose in your decision making and what you do day in and day out in the organization, and then constantly communicate purpose with your people. And I come back to the point I said earlier. I'm going to finish up here in just a second. Ultimately, it comes down to, is it about you or about your people? Patrick Lencioni also wrote another book called Motive, and he talks about the motives of leadership. Why don't we get in it? It's basically 2 things. It's either about me or it's about them. And I tell our folks all the time in Alpharetta, the higher you go, the more leadership responsibility you get, the more it's about other people. The more it's got to be about other people. And again, that should be at the heart of what our purpose is. True leadership must be for the benefit of the followers, not to enrich the leader. John Maxwell, we've heard his name a lot today, and he is fantastic. Now I want to finish with this, and I love it. And again, Melissa mentioned it earlier. Some of you have probably seen this already. I literally use this every time I teach. I'm going to show you this, and then I'm going to give you one more statement, and I'm done. But a good way to start the day is with purpose of making your bed.
Change the world, start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. To pass SEAL training, there are a series of long swims that must be completed. One is the night swim. Before the swim, the instructors joyfully brief the students on all the species of sharks that inhabit the waters off San Clemente. They assure you, however, that no student has ever been eaten by a shark, at least not that they can remember. But you are also taught that if a shark begins to circle your position, stand your ground. Do not swim away. Do not act afraid. And if the shark, hungry for a midnight snack, darts towards you, then summons up all your strength and punch him in the snout, and he will turn and swim away. There are a lot of sharks in the world. If you hope to complete the swim, you will have to deal with them. So if you want to change the world, don't back down from the sharks. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, But the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchkin crew, we called them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had one American Indian, one African American, one Polish American, one Greek American, one Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers. The 9th week of training is referred to as Hell Week. It is 6 days of no sleep, constant physical and mental harassment, and one special day at the Mud Flats. The Mud Flats are an area between San Diego and Tijuana where the water runs off and creates the Tijuana Sloughs, a swampy patch of terrain where the mud will engulf you. It is on Wednesday of Hell Week that you paddle down to the Mud Flats and spend the next 15 hours trying to survive this freezing cold, the howling wind, and the incessant pressure to quit from the instructors. As the sun began to set that Wednesday evening, my training class, having committed some egregious infraction to rules, was ordered into the mud. The mud consumed each man till there was nothing visible but our heads. The instructors told us we could leave the mud if only 5 men would quit. Only 5 men, just 5 men, and we could get out of the oppressive cold. Looking around the mud flat, it was apparent that some students were about to give up. It was still over 8 hours till the sun came up. 8 more hours of bone-chilling cold. The chattering teeth and the shivering moans of the trainees were so loud, it was hard to hear anything. And then one voice began to echo through the night. One voice raised in song. The song was terribly out of tune, but sung with great enthusiasm. One voice became 2, and 2 became 3, and before long, everyone in the class was singing. The instructors threatened us with more time in the mud if we kept up the singing, but the singing persisted, and somehow the mud seemed a little warmer, and the wind a little tamer, and the dawn not so far away. If I have learned anything in my time traveling the world, it is the power of hope. The power of one person, a Washington, a Lincoln, King, Mandela, and even a young girl from Pakistan, Malala. One person can change the world by giving people hope. So if you want to change the world, start each day with a task completed. Find someone to help you through life. Respect everyone. Know that life is not fair and that you will fail often. But if you take some risks, step up when the times are the toughest, face down the bullies, lift up the downtrodden, and never, ever give up. If you do these things, the next generation and the generations that follow will live in a world far better than the one we have today. And what started here will indeed have changed the world for the better.
What you do matters. Thank you for what you do. Don't ever lose sight of that. We are in a profession that is still one of the most noble professions on the face of the planet. What you do matters. 911, by the way, you really matter. I'm sorry you don't get the love you should get sometimes. You are awesome, and you are just as important as police and fire. All right, you're the tip of the spear. But what you do matters, and how you lead matters in making sure your people understand that they matter. Thank you.